Hi yogis, it's Nicole for Metro Yoga Chicago. Today we're going to be breaking down a couple variations of a sun salutation. We're coming up on the spring equinox. It's a time for new beginnings, to reset intentions, and we think about sort of creating this internal fire in order to get rid of and sort of clean out, do a little spring cleaning on self-limiting ideas and thoughts, and to just shake off some of the sluggishness that comes with winter. One of the best ways to do that is through those sun salutations, which build up a little heat. So in this quick little 20-minute flow, we will break down a couple options and a couple variations, but first we'll get into the mindset. So come into your easy, comfortable seat. Anchor your sit bones and tailbone into the mat. And I should say, if easy seat doesn't work for your knees, legs out is just fine. What really matters is that, much like those little seedlings growing outside, we are anchoring our sit bones like we're growing roots, finding a nice sense of ease as we lift up our spine. Maybe give our shoulders a roll or two back into space. And we soften the muscles in our jaw, our brow, our forehead. So start to deepen your inhales, bringing them into the body, taking long, released head clearing exhales. So maybe you're thinking about an idea or a thought you would like to let go of on the mat, or maybe you're calling to mind an intention that you would like to be part of your new beginnings. But breathing that down deep into the body. And we'll start to make our way onto hands and knees, coming into a tabletop. And we want our shoulders stacked right over our wrists and our hips over our knees. Our elbows are a bit soft. And we'll just take a couple cats and cows to warm up our spine. So you start by inhaling, lifting your chin and chest. And then when we exhale, we roll our spine as high as it'll go, arcing, pulling belly button in towards the spine. Inhale, lift. Exhale, arc. And the idea is to just connect breath to movement and to warm up your back. So let's take one more round. Nice big exhale. Then we'll bring it back to neutral. You'll take your right hip, bump it over to the right, take a little look back at it, a little horse biting tail. Come to center, bump your hip to the left, take a little look at it. Come back to center, and we'll use our downward facing dog to get to standing. So give your toes a curl under and allow that to lift up your seat, taking a couple big pedals of your heels. Just a little warm up of your calf muscles. Walk your toes to your hands and come into a forward fold. So this is going to be a big part of our sun salutations. We'll practice it here. We inhale and lengthen out of our spine to what we call a half lift. Your palms might wind up right under your kneecaps, and you might have to flex your core a little bit to make sure you're not dipping into your low back. We don't want to strain our low backs. Now imagine reaching your ears out of your shoulders. Exhale, hinge back forward, get your knees nice and soft, grab your elbows. Take some nice sways for your upper body. You'll see more how that half lift comes into play in just a bit here. So now release your hands. We're going to slow roll up to standing, and our head will be the last thing that comes up. Moving nice and slow so we don't get a head rush. Give our shoulders another roll back into space. Ground into our feet. So I'll show you what a sun salutation looks like, and then we'll break it down a little bit. So we start by inhaling our hands up overhead, and we hinge back to our forward fold. We call it Uttanasana. Remember that all-important halfway lift where you engage your core to keep your back safe. Now you take your hands to the mat, and you step back into a high plank, keeping your elbows a bit soft. Spreading through your hands, pressing through the heel of your hands. High plank is really challenging. So if you're still working on strength in your arms and in your core, or if you notice that your seat might be sagging or that you might be lifting it up, almost like our downward facing dog, I would highly recommend dropping your knees and placing them on the mat. And tops of the feet will press into the mat. You're in half of a high plank, and it is an absolutely wonderful place to build strength. Now we soften our elbows. They graze our rib cage as we lower down to our bellies. And we're just going to inhale up a little cobra. Now this is going to put a little compression in your low back. So maybe you use just the strength of your back, lifting up your palms to try it out this first round. You lower, press your hands into the mat, and let's come back to that tabletop where we just were. Then we curl our toes, lift our seat, find a downward facing dog. And you can take a couple petals. I love that variation. It has a lot of options for building up strength, for not forcing the body to do too much too quickly. So step one foot towards the front of your mat, let the other follow it. Inhale, half lift. Don't forget to engage and lengthen out your whole spine. Hinge and forward fold. Inhale, bring both hands up. And exhale through the heart. So let's try another variation. We'll inhale, sweep both hands overhead. Exhale to the toes. Half lift. Find your high plank. Step back. So maybe if you feel and you take a peek at yourself in the mirror and you see your seat is in line with your shoulders, there's no sagging or lifting, you might try lowering down to your belly, letting your elbows graze the ribs, but try and lower the whole body at the same time. Uncurl your toes, press into the tops of your feet. If that little compression felt good in the back before, you can inhale up a little higher. Just roll your shoulders away from your ears, a little lift up. Want to dial up the intensity? Instead of going into our tabletop, curl your toes under. It's like you're pushing back up through a high plank. Lift your seat downward facing. And a couple big pedals never hurt anyone. And we take a big step to the front. Inhale, half lift. Don't forget to lengthen out and engage. Forward fold, Uttanasana. Inhale, hands up to that extended mountain pose. And exhale through heart center. So third and final variation here, and probably the most challenging, but we're breaking this down into baby pieces, and if you're not there today, you might be one day. Inhale, both hands up. Exhale, hinge. Half lift. High plank. All right, so spread through your hands, especially your thumb and index finger. That'll take pressure out of your wrists. You're going to shift forward on your toes just a little bit and lower down just halfway. It's called our Chaturanga, our half push-ups. We uncurl our toes, press the tops of our feet into the mat. The hips are lifted, shoulders are rolling away from ears. Here's our upward facing dog. Curl your toes, lift your seat. take a couple big pedals. Now you could take that big step to the front of your mat, but if you want to play with jumping, you would ground into the balls of your feet, pick up your heels, put a pretty substantial bend into your knees. And we're going to use a little core strength as we spring off of our feet and jump to the front of our mat. Inhale that all-important halfway lift. Exhale, hinge. Inhale, sweep your hands all the way up. Let's add a little back bend here, dropping elbows in line with shoulders, opening up the chest. Inhale, bring your hands up. Let's do one more for good measure. Exhale to your toes. Half lift. Find your high plank. Step back. Are you going to lower all or just halfway to Chaturanga? Press into the tops of your feet for your back bend. Look up. Curl your toes. We always meet in a down dog, so if you're ever in a class and you want to skip a flow, head here. Everyone else will meet you there. Now bring your knees to the mat. Back to table. Remember this. Head on to your seat. Swing your legs out. All those back bends in our sun salutation really put a little contraction in our low back. Let's put a little bend into our knees. Lift our chest up nice and high. Rest it on our quads. Feel that amazing release in your spine. Inhale, lift. And just rest, chest on quads. Now, of course, if you want a little hamstring release, you could take all the bend out of your knees, hinge forward, and it still should feel pretty good in your spine. Inhale, come up. Want to reach for your toes? We'll use a little core to get to our back. When you land, reach your hands overhead. Take a nice big stretch. And reaching each toes. Bend into your knees. Give them a squeeze and a hug. Take a little rock side to side. Drop your knees off to the right. Keep both shoulders on the mat. Really just bringing out our spine. Notice how, whether we're warming up, doing our sun salutations, or cooling down, it's always about the spine. You could face the ceiling or take a little look off to your left. Bring your head to the center, your knees to the center. Give them a hug and a squeeze. Take a little rock. Drop your knees to the left. Keep both shoulders on the mat. Reach your fingers. Maybe look to the right. Bringing out the spine one more time. Twisting to unwind. Maybe recalling that intention you set back at the beginning of our little mini flow. Take your head center. Take your leg center. Give them a nice big hug into your chest. A couple little circles with your knees to massage out your lower back. Draw your forehead up to your knees, a big hug and squeeze. And exhale on down into what we call our Savasana. So your ankles could be rolled open and you could be lying on your back. Or you could have your soles planted and your knees together in the center. We call it our constructive rest. It puts space in your lower back. And taking a few moments to let the body sink into the mat. Take a really big inhale. Open mouth, sigh out. Nice big inhale down to the toes and fingers. Giving them a little wiggle. Rolling out wrists and ankles. Dropping one ear to the mat. And then the other. Reach your fingers overhead. Take a really big stretch. Roll onto your right side. Pause for just a beat. And press up to your easy seat. Yogis, thank you so much for joining me and practicing a few sun salutations. It's always a pleasure practicing with you. Namaste.